My name is Craig Yellick. I'm the Vice President here at Alta Consulting and Training, and we're here today talking about business extranet solutions. The Alta Consulting and Training has been around for 25 years. We're a Microsoft Gold partner, specializing in the Microsoft server technologies, focusing on SharePoint and the SharePoint product line, but also Microsoft's CRM product, both the online and on-premise versions. We also do training and system engineering in support of all of the services that we deliver. As a consulting group focusing on SharePoint, we engage our customers in three general categories. Starting here on the left for your initial deployment. These are for folks that don't presently have SharePoint or have it but are concerned that it was not maybe set up correctly. We're there to help you get started with the product, to make good use of it. We help you set up your taxonomy and other metadata collections to make sure that your first early experiences with SharePoint are going to be productive and useful. Next, sometimes we are brought in at this stage, or we try to push you from your initial deployment into broad adoption by making sure that there are ample opportunities for users to get work done and really take advantage of SharePoint in an enterprise-wide manner. And then finally, the ultimate goal is to get you past simply utilizing the built-in functionality of SharePoint, as fine as that is, to really view SharePoint as a solution platform, where it's not just a place to go to mess around with document libraries and lists and so on, but to really use SharePoint as an asset, almost like a line of business application. And so that's our sincere goal, is to get you from deployment through broad adoption to business solutions. And in fact, that's what we're here today to talk about, is leveraging SharePoint Online as a client extranet as part of a larger business solution. When we deliver solutions for customers, we do them in one of three broad categories. Here on the left, under empowerment and agility, we have what we call information worker solutions. These are out-of-the-box solutions that you use with SharePoint in the Internet Explorer browser, creating lists, creating libraries, creating views, manipulating SharePoint, customizing SharePoint to make it work better for your needs. Sometimes this is strictly training. Other times it's side-by-side mentoring, where you want one of our SharePoint experts to sort of help you through an implementation process so you can learn. Alta's very big on knowledge transfer. We've had the AND training in our title for 25 years. And so we've become pretty adept at getting you off the ground and running with the out-of-box solutions. In the middle here, we have power user solutions. These are where you're stepping outside of SharePoint proper and into the SharePoint Designer product. SharePoint Designer is a free download from Microsoft.com, and it gives you additional capabilities to customize SharePoint and add value to it. Some organizations that we've been in are a bit afraid of SharePoint Designer. They incorrectly believe that it gives users too much power, and they're nervous about users messing around with the product. That's very unfortunate, because it's a misconception. You do not have any rights in SharePoint Designer that you don't already have in the browser. So if you cannot delete a document library in the browser as an information worker, you're not going to be able to do it in SharePoint Designer. If you're not allowed to change the design of a page in the browser, you're not going to be allowed to do that in SharePoint Designer either. So power users are so named because they're not developers. A very important distinction to make here. These are not folks that have been trained in software development or programming. These are just your average coworker here out in the field that's learned a little bit more than the usual person about SharePoint and is going in there to customize things, primarily workflows and other more extensive customizations of SharePoint. Here again, the learning curve can be a little steeper in these areas, and we're happy to help you climb that curve and really extract the full value out of the SharePoint platform. IT managed solutions are on the far right here. This is for, as the slide shows, sophistication and control. This is the hopefully unusual and rare circumstances where SharePoint doesn't quite fit the bill. It's missing a little bit of functionality that's going to put it over the top. We're big fans of trying to use SharePoint as SharePoint exists. Use it out of the box. Saves you a lot of money, saves a lot of time and hassle to be able to use it right out of the box. But again, occasionally we're not there. And in fact, today's discussion on the extranet portal solution involves a tiny bit of .NET programming to sort of get over the hump, and I'll be explaining that later when we get into the demonstration portion of this. All right, so what are the business drivers for extranet solutions? This is for people who perhaps have an on-premise SharePoint deployment, and they're interacting with their own internal colleagues. Different departments and divisions are collaborating and getting work done, but that's not quite the universe of everybody that your organization interacts with. You've got suppliers out in the world, perhaps contractors, key customers, perhaps you have partners that you collaborate with on larger projects. All of these people are central to your business. They absolutely must be involved in interacting with you, and it's arguable perhaps it's more important than some of the internal communications to get these external communications there. So we have three major areas I want to focus on here. Number one is effective communication. If you've been sending email with file attachments to try to keep your suppliers or contractors up to date, you know the horror of attempting to keep version control and updates to files and just making sure that the right people get the right documents at the right time. Long, tedious voicemails are nobody's idea of fun, and faxes, same thing. We really need to stop this. This is not an effective way to communicate. Everybody's got an internet connection these days. Everybody's got a browser of some sort, whether it's on a Microsoft platform or an Apple platform or an Android smartphone. We've got a better way to communicate than email with attachments. In the middle here, we need collaboration. Relationships between you and your suppliers, contractors, customers, partners, etc. really need to be two-way. We don't want to just be broadcasting information out to the world through a public website. We really need a customized experience, a one-to-one relationship with these external entities. It allows us to leverage experiences across all of these. Some of our suppliers are frankly better than others. Some of our contractors more efficient, more effective than others. We need to learn and share knowledge across all of this to make sure that we're engaging in a best practice attitude for dealing with the work that we need to do. Once you've connected yourself to these external entities, the expectation is increased profit. We should be able to get to market faster with a new product or a new service. We need rapid response to change. If there's any one constant in the last decade is constant change. We don't know what's around the corner, but we do know that we're going to have increasingly less time to respond to it. We need to react quickly to opportunities and beat the competition when they're out there gunning for us, because you know they've got their eye on us as well. And so we've got to, for all these reasons, try to accelerate these relationships and leverage them. All right, so an extranet in general is a good thing. We believe that the easiest and most inexpensive way to get to an extranet is to take advantage of SharePoint Online. SharePoint Online is the cloud version of SharePoint that's part of the Office 365 family of products. It runs on Microsoft data centers up in the cloud. These are distributed across the world, backed up across multiple geographies. A very secure, controllable, and cost-effective way to get things done. On the security angle, you have internal users and external users. Your internal users already have Active Directory accounts. They already have passwords that are controlled and managed by your central IT. Users are happy with logging into their desktops or laptops or what have you, and with federated security, they instantly and effortlessly transition into SharePoint Online with the same identity. So you can be John Smith from the marketing communications channel inside your organization, and you're still John Smith out in SharePoint Online. And as you click links between the two, you don't even notice that you're making the transition. Very, very well done. Users absolutely adore that capability. Now, obviously, your external users are not going to have Active Directory accounts. It's a very expensive process to license. You've got to open up your enterprise to the internet and have all sorts of firewall and other proxy-related issues. So it's wonderful that your external users have literally no relationship to your internal systems. They don't need any access to your internal systems. They only interact with the SharePoint Online through their own username and password combinations. Now you, however, because you're the owner of that SharePoint Online extranet, have total control over who sees what, who can edit, who can respond, who can approve. So you still retain the rights to control these external users just in the same manner that you control your own internal folks. From a control standpoint, when you go with SharePoint Online, you can go as fast or slow as you desire. This is not a single monolithic solution that has to be deployed like a typical line of business software application. You have the ability to stand up a SharePoint Online site and just experiment with it. There's a 30-day free trial. We're happy to set you up with one of those. And you can experience and sort of pretend, hey, let's play a day in the life of a customer, a day in the life of a partner, a day in the life of a contractor, and what would I want to experience as a contractor? What would I need to see as a key customer? How could I use SharePoint Online to collaborate and communicate with them? We're happy to help you out with proof of concepts in this area. Very low risk opportunity. If it turns out that you just cannot envision how this is going to work out, you just discard your 30-day free trial, and you've got pretty close to zero investment in the process. But we don't believe you're going to be frustrated with that. We're going to believe you're going to see a heck of a lot of value in this. And the neatest thing about SharePoint Online is the instant scaling without advanced planning. We may start off with a proof of concept with perhaps 2 or 3 key suppliers and maybe get some lessons learned, tweak the process a few times and decide, okay, we're not happy with just 3 suppliers. We want 200 suppliers participating in this process. SharePoint Online scales instantly. You just simply create several hundred customer accounts, and immediately SharePoint Online responds to that. You'll be given more resources in the data center, more memory, more processor, more bandwidth. All of that simply scales up with you creating additional users. So you don't have to obsess about planning. From the cost perspective, you've got no servers to purchase, nothing to configure or install. This is all done up in the cloud. It's a predictable low monthly fee per user, and there's quite a broad spectrum from read-only users who are quite inexpensive to more fully functional users, all the way to users that need the full suite with Office 365 products like Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. The fee is a per-user fee, and you can change your user count anytime. So start off with 5 users, go up to 10, go up to 20, go up to 50 over a period of months, and you can mix and match these accounts. Not everybody has to be the same. So I can have a dozen read-only users who are very inexpensive for me, another dozen mid-range users, and then another couple dozen full suite users that need all of the bells and whistles. We're there. So whether it's you're sharing proposals, collaborating on quotes, sending status information out or gathering status back again, managing revisions to documents, publishing guidelines for working with you, all of these things are things that an extranet would allow you to interact with and collaborate securely and effectively with SharePoint Online. I want to show you a quick demonstration here. This is a law firm client of ours out in Detroit, Michigan. They wanted a better experience with sharing documents, and if you've ever worked with lawyers on any legal matters, whether it's a real estate transaction or a merger, acquisition, lawsuit, whatever. You know, there's nothing but documents floating around, many versions of these documents, and their customers were getting a little tired of getting huge packets of information in the mail, which takes time, or getting large documents emailed to them, which also is a hassle, especially when there's multiple revisions going on. So they wanted a solution to this. Now, we already had a pretty large on-premise intranet up and running for these folks, and so they wanted to extend this now to the extranet and have a controlled, secure way to share documents with select customers, and they did not want to open up their on-premise SharePoint to the outside world. You can imagine in a law firm, there's all sorts of very proprietary, very sensitive information that you would never want outsiders poking around your internal network. So SharePoint Online was the perfect solution where there's literally no way to go from SharePoint Online back into their enterprise. But that's also the problem, right? How do you effectively share and communicate with customers when all of the source documents are on the inside? So we developed a workflow-driven process that accomplishes this job. The first order of business was to create a custom workflow action. So what you see in the screenshot here is the SharePoint Designer Workflow Designer, and there's a new list action called Copy to Client Portal. In the lower half of the screen, this is part of their workflow. Now, the workflow I'm showing you in all the screenshots, frankly, are pretend. These are from our testing portion of this deployment. Obviously, we're not going to be, going into our customer's legal system and show you their customer and client information and so on. So their workflow is substantially more sophisticated than this. I just wanted to get a workflow that could easily fit on the screen. So basically it says, oh, you want to share this? Well, let's make sure it's approved for sharing. This is to prevent somebody from accidentally sharing the wrong document. Maybe it's a draft version of a transcript or something, and it's not really available yet for sharing. So this would prevent somebody from accidentally sharing the wrong version. And then we kick in with this custom process. This is our Alto's version of the SharePoint Online, alto.sharepoint.com. And then it's going to be putting it into a list called Client Documents. Does some logging and so on. And then they wanted to send the customer an email saying, hey, you've got a document that you can go get. And notice that when the client gets the email, they're getting an alert to the fact that there's a document to go get. They're not getting the document itself. So this is not an attachment, all right? It's just a notification to that client that a document is available. Inside the document library, there is a Share with Client toolbar button that we added, as well as a Share with Client context menu choice. And this kicks off that workflow and lets them share documents as well as things like videos and so on of depositions and site visits and what have you. As a side note, when I'm demonstrating the full cycle here, I want to point out another area that we're pretty pleased with in SharePoint 2010. This works in online as well as on-premise, is the taxonomy for term stores. Every document in a law firm, and I'm going to guess every document in your document libraries as well, really needs to be classified in some manner. It needs additional tagging to make sure that everybody understands what's going on. Now, if we open up classification just as a simple text file, a text property, you know that there's simply no way that people are going to use the terms and words in here consistently. They're going to spell things differently, perhaps incorrectly. They're going to use abbreviations. They're going to use ambiguous terms that aren't accurate enough. If we use a drop-down combo box of classes, that works only for a small number. If there are 700 or 800 classifications, as there are in this law firm, nobody wants to deal with a drop-down list box with 700 or 800 items in it. The other problem with the drop-down list is that it's alpha sorted, and there's really no way to quickly find information in a giant list. So for all those reasons, we're taking advantage of the SharePoint term store so that the users can type one or more keywords, and as they're typing, all of the suggestions pop up here for that auto-completion behavior. So here this is a hierarchy called classification, procedural, discovery, defendant, and when they hover here, the ordinal classification number is shown there as well. So as we get into the demo here, I'll point that out as well. So let's go over here and see this in action. This is the alto.sharepoint.com here in the URL. And you'll see, so I'm in my SharePoint Online portal. And in the client documents library here, there are no documents whatsoever. Here in my internal site, so here is HTTP Craig, which is obviously a locally resolved intranet or on-premise SharePoint. I've got my Matters library with Acme Industries, depositions. In here I have my documents that I would like to share with my client. And so when I elect to launch that workflow, we'll see it runs. And once again, I also want to share that video. I'll use the drop down for that. All right, and I can switch back now to my document library over here on my SharePoint Online portal. And we see that the Acme Industries folder has been created now. Very, very importantly, due to security, nobody gets to see any of these documents. Even if I have a login to this alpha.sharepoint.com, if I'm a customer, a client or something, I'm not going to be able to see this folder. There's an administrative action that has to be done on the part of the law firm's administrative staff that when a new folder like this shows up, somebody's got to go in and set the permissions on that. So by default, nobody gets to see this. Now, during the permission management process, the law firm administrators will grant permission to the 1 or 2 client logins that are supposed to be able to see this particular matter. So if I'm not Acme Industries, if I am Ajax or Contoso or Fabricam, I am not going to be able to see this. And by the same token, just because I've been granted access to Acme Industries doesn't mean that I'm going to have access to other things. So very, very, very secure. We can go and see Wiley's deposition here. All right, so that in very brief is the demonstration of kicking a document securely from an internal system to an external system. Here in SharePoint Designer, I've got the workflow action to copy to client portal, and we've got the configuration of stuff that's there. So that's all the pieces that are necessary from the standpoint of the user. Because this is a SharePoint workflow, the hard part is here, performing that secure sign-in and copying of that document into the extranet portal. And then the customer users are free to go and add additional actions. So we've got all of the other workflow actions they might want to wrap around that can be done. So I can tailor my workflow over time without having to haul in software developers constantly to get things done. So that was the demonstration there of the client extranet portal process. Just one small example of a much larger context that you'll probably be in. At the same time, we could be sharing task lists and status updates, shared calendars, any number of workflows to automate routine business-making decisions. Once we've got an extranet, our users are then empowered to have much better connectedness with our external relationships. We're going to be able to react faster to opportunities as they come up. And we're also going to spend a lot less on IT, because very, very little of this actually involves IT. Once the SharePoint Online site's been set up, and honestly anybody can set that up. You do not have to be even a power user for that. You just have to be able to hit next a few times and fill in some forms in a web browser, and you've got yourself a SharePoint Online site. Your on-premise server probably ended up with a little bit of IT infrastructure there, but once you're up and running, these two worlds, you can seamlessly flip back and forth between them without having to rely on custom solutions. Once we've got collaboration with our external business partners, we're going to have much, much better insights into how things are happening. We're going to make better decisions. We're going to be a lot more agile. One thing that's important to point out, and I hope you saw that there, is that it's really hard to tell SharePoint Online apart from your on-premise intranet. SharePoint looks and works exactly the same way online as it does on-premise, so your users are going to feel right at home being able to work with this stuff. Right, for a next step, if you're interested in continuing on with these technologies, we have a regular newsletter that goes out, so if you're not presently receiving our newsletter, make sure you sign up for that. These webinars are done on a fairly regular basis as well, and if you're on our mailing list, you'll certainly get notification of that. We have classroom training where you can learn more about this. We can customize the public classes and can even deliver them remote as well, so you don't have to travel necessarily to see these. I recommend immediately moving into this next step, and let's experience SharePoint. I mentioned the SharePoint test drive. This is a 30-day free trial of the product. We can set you up with SharePoint Online. No limitations, by the way. This 30-day free trial is the real thing without any limitations whatsoever for up to 5 users. You can also, at the same time, get the same deal for Office 365 if you've never worked with the online versions of Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Link, Live Meeting. All of these technologies are available for you to experience as well. These are self-directed experiences where you sign up for these and are pretty much on your own, possibly with our assistance if you need it. But if you want a little bit more guided experience, we have a thing called the Customer Immersion Experience. And this is where we take you through, in a role-playing model, in a lab setting, so you have a guided experience through all of these technologies. So you can actually, just in a matter of hours, an entire team of folks, we encourage you to do this with a team of individuals so that everybody gets to play different roles and see these tools and technologies in play. We're happy to help you out there. Once you've decided to move to the final level here, we would love to come in and do a strategy briefing for you where we can listen to your business challenges. They don't have to be extranets necessarily. Have an architectural design session where we take those knowledge that we gain and sort of paint a vision for how SharePoint, whether it's SharePoint Online or on-premise, might be utilized to solve a business solution. We move there through a proof of concept. These are low-risk opportunities to solve a small problem quickly, get an early win, and see how SharePoint might be able to solve a particular business problem for you. And then, of course, full-blown deployment, taking you through those layers of from an information worker early deployment to a broad adoption with power users, all the way to business solutions with custom .NET solutions as necessary. So, thank you very much for attending today, and we'll take any questions that you might have. Again, my apologies for the microphone. Hopefully that was resolved to everybody's satisfaction. Okay. Let's see here. All right, question here. Who decides security assigned to each contractor? Can I prevent one from seeing the others? Yeah, that's entirely up to you as an administrator. When you create a new user in your SharePoint Online site, you can give them literally no permissions to see anything whatsoever. They sign in, and that's about it. And then from there, you can dole out permissions as you see fit. So if you don't want one contractor to have even other awareness of other contractors, you can certainly do it in that manner. However, you may have other areas where everybody should benefit together. We do a lot of things with wikis with our customers for extranets, where there are guidelines and policies and so on. Of course, you'd want everybody to be able to see that. So if you have information for contractors that's unique to each contractor, then you just simply don't give permissions to everybody to see those things. So it's pretty effective, and it's the same user interface that you use elsewhere in SharePoint is used for managing that. All right, next question here. We don't have the staff to monitor a portal. How much time does it take to manage a portal? That's really up to you. I wouldn't say there's any specific amount of time that's going to be required. It's kind of hard to answer in absolute. Once your extranet portal is up and running, they're pretty much self-maintaining. You don't have to do anything. There's no backups required. There's no special administration that you have to be constantly worrying about disk space or resources. SharePoint Online takes care of all that for you. SharePoint Online also has the ability to send you alerts and other status updates. So rather than having your staff constantly polling SharePoint Online, looking for changes to task statuses, looking for new documents to be uploaded, looking for changes to documents, you can have SharePoint send an alert to you saying, hey, you know, this library just was modified. So from that standpoint, you could let your normal staff pretty much ignore the portal and know that they'll get an alert when there's something to do out there. Okay, so is it a requirement to be in the cloud to deliver an extranet as you described? No. I think personally that SharePoint Online is arguably the best and most cost-effective way to deliver an extranet. But if you have an IT infrastructure that can handle it, you certainly could do everything I described today with using an extranet that you host and you maintain with your own equipment. Absolutely. How much training is typically required for our employees that plan to contribute content in the extranet? From a training perspective, I'd say probably no formal classroom training if you're worried about that. I'd say the main thing is to manipulate SharePoint on-premise in a safe environment where there's no risk, because every single thing you ever learn about manipulating SharePoint on-premise also applies to SharePoint Online as an extranet. And so it's mostly a matter of getting experience creating list items, loading documents around. Probably a half an hour of side-by-side mentoring with somebody to show you how to do it a few times is going to be enough. Here's some is there a practical limit to the number of customer sites we can set up? SharePoint Online has upper limits, I'm sure. I'm not aware of them. I would think that multiple hundreds of customer sites could be stood up on a SharePoint Online without any problem. As part of that scaling story where the more you use SharePoint, the more resources you get. So if you jump from 5 users to 50 users to 500 users over a period of a year, the Microsoft data centers simply allocate more and more and more and more resources to you because you're paying for 500 units of resource versus 5 units of resource. So it sort of works itself out. So I believe there probably are physical upper limits, but they're in the many, many thousands of users and so on. I think I've heard of 20, 30,000 users of SharePoint Online sites. in some of the Microsoft literature. So if that's a huge issue, if you believe you've got a large number and you're concerned about possibly not being able to use SharePoint Online because of that huge number, just contact us and we'll be happy to do the research for you and try to find a customer case study or something out of Microsoft showing huge upper limits. But I know it's in the many thousands, many thousands. The question is, can it verify that a user has seen a document or watched an entire video when needed for off-site compliance? I think out of the box, it would not make it clear that somebody opened a document. I think all that activity is logged, and so it's probably available in a log somewhere. With a little tiny bit of Java script programming, we'd be able to attach an action so that when somebody clicked on a link, it would write an entry to a log somewhere that you'd be able to access to say, yes, this user at this date and time clicked on this link. Now, whether they read the document, obviously we have nothing to say about that. Watching a video to completion, that is not something that's going to happen out of the box because it's going to depend on where that video is hosted and how to detect that different waypoints were hit. Now, I'm drawing a blank on the customer here, but we did actually have to do this for somebody in a different context. I believe there is a way to tell if a video has been seen to the end, but again, that's not an out-of-the-box thing. That would take a little bit of custom development to do that. All right, well, we're pretty much up to our time limit here, so I don't want to take too much more of your morning away from you. Thank you very much for attending. If you have questions that didn't get answered, they've all been logged, and we'll respond to each and every one of them via telephone call or email or something like that. But we'll sign off for now and say thanks for attending and good luck with your extranets.